Eagles Talk on A2D Radio. We are back from our 2-week hiatus, and we are brought to you by Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs, and seeded rolls for your cheesesteaks. Mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. We are live on A2D Radio. It's your boy Chucks. It's Brinks and it's PY. Gentlemen, how are you? How was your holiday and how's it hanging?
It was great. I can't wait for this topic tonight. It's so much fun to talk about misery. Like, it's great when they're winning.
We know, trust me, with you, we know.
It's so much more fun and so much more to do this.
It's not.
It's just a dumpster fire.
PY, let's be real though. You loved, as much as you like to bash people who are negative, you love to bash people too. You love any player or coach or whatever that you have an agenda toward. You are the quickest person to jump on and
it's not true.
Criticize them, even to an unfair and unreasonable amount. So, like,
it's not true.
Yeah, you can get on Brinks, but you are not absolved from.
So I'm negative to agree. So. Brinks like bathes in it like it's bath water.
You do too. You do too.
Do you know how much easier it is to fill an hour? We used to do 2 hours. Now we kind of do.
We used to do 5 hours. Okay, and
it's so much easier to fill time when these teams suck and make me mad. It's
no,
so much easier.
I don't. For my mental health, I like when they're good because I can wake up.
But see, I don't associate sports with my mental health anymore. Like, I'm not mad until Wednesday when the Eagles lose on Sunday anymore. Now, it's a big,
you have a
big
good
spot. Some of these games
that
we're about to talk about.
In the long run.
All right, he's an interrupter, so let's just move on.
Yeah, I already can tell this is gonna be a fun one. We're definitely gonna have a lot of interesting takes here. Well, I don't think any of us are going to disagree on. Well, let me knock on wood. We might disagree on some things. You guys might say someone that I'm going to be like, wait, really? But we will see how it goes. But our poll question, we're going to talk about players and coaches first. We're going to start that off with the first half of the show by going that way. And then we're going to get to overall moments and games, stuff like that. So let's kick it off with our poll question, which is Nnamdi Asomugha is the biggest disappointment in terms of player acquisition the Eagles have had since 2000. Agree or disagree? Brinks, because you love to revel in this stuff. Let's lead it off with you. Out of all the players that have come and gone in the past 25 years, this quarter century, would you say Nnamdi Asomugha is the most disappointing that the Eagles have brought in?
No. I think the most disappointing, I guess it was a saga in 2004, was the Terrell Owens saga. That was the most disappointing to me.
Okay.
I mean, that could have been if those two idiots, and they're both idiots. I know T.O.'s an idiot, but McNabb, he was an idiot too. If those two could just get along for 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons, like, the sky would have been a limit for T.O. The sky would have been a limit for Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid. Andy Reid wouldn't be in Kansas City, I'll tell you that, if those two got along. So, I mean, in terms of a player acquisition, Nnamdi was bad. But when Nnamdi was here, there was a lot of things that were god-awful, which I guess we'll get to in the second half of the show, maybe the first half of the show. I'm not sure. When we talk about the dream team. But that was just so disappointing that they got a Super Bowl appearance out of it, but they didn't win. And then I think he only lasted until maybe week 8. I think his last game was a week 8 game against Denver in 2005, and then Andy Reid just sent him home. Just total disappointment when it just wasted talent, wasted potential, wasted a good offensive line, wasted a really good defense, wasted the last few years of his life, really, of our defensive coordinator, legendary defensive coordinator Jim Johnson. he died just a few years later. That's my answer. The whole TO saga. That's with the player being a center point. TO, the whole TO saga, more disappointing than Nnamdi Asomugha just completely stinking.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think of it that way, but that's a fair argument. Like that's a really fair argument. I was looking at disappointment in terms of like they never reached what they were supposed to be, and so like I wasn't thinking T.O. because in the one season he did produce and like he balled out in the Super Bowl, so I never really like that never crossed my mind. But to think of it from that way, to go from what could have been after that to what happened is like okay, that's a good answer. That's a good way to frame it. So I like that answer. PY, before you go, we're gonna bring in Les because Les is coming on now. Hey, what's going on, Les? How are you?
Just great, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. It's been a few weeks, but we are back on. Glad to have you on. So we are talking about, as you can see, as you know, the worst and most disappointing players of the Eagles in this Eagles quarter century. Rob disagreed with the poll question. He went with T.O. over Nnamdi. So I'm going to go with you, PY, and then myself. But what do you think, Les? Do you think Nnamdi is the biggest disappointment?
Well, I was going to go along with that, and I'm kind of like you. I listened to Rob a little bit here, and I thought, well, those are really good points.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I did think of T.O., but I wasn't sure the criterion, if that was really what we were talking about. I was thinking along the lines of what you were thinking, is that we were talking about somebody that just was never what they were supposed to be, T.O. certainly, that was a bigger disaster than Nnamdi was. Yes. So I might have to go with Rob there.
Yeah.
But I also had some other contenders that I thought very strongly about.
There are a lot.
The original criterion that I was thinking of as people that you could, I don't know, acquisition. Under Rob's criterion, if you include the draft as acquisition, you could make a case for Carson Wentz. But looking at it the way I was originally, just as players they signed or drafted who were just never what they should have been. I was thinking about Stacey Andrews, Stacey Day.
I knew that was coming.
I was thinking about DeMarco Murray, Byron Maxwell, Bryce Huff, even Jalen Reagor as a draftee. I wasn't thinking Marcus Smith because I think most people felt when they drafted him that they were getting a guy who should have been drafted in the third round.
Yeah.
And he was even worse than that. But I wouldn't include. I really did, and I was kind of going to go with Nnamdi, but I think I agree with Rob that it was, if you look at disappointment in the broadest sense, it would have to be T.O.
Yeah, it's a very good argument. PY, what do you think? Nnamdi or someone else?
So I actually like the way Rob phrased everything. I think it was a little out the box, and it's a very Brinkman way of looking at things. So I'm going to go Carson. Like, obviously, like Nnamdi was a complete other mess up, but I argue that's less on Nnamdi and more on the Eagles, who just saw, oh my God, look at this guy's numbers, instead of nobody throws to him. Yeah, we should get him.
Do you want, real quickly, I can tell you a quick story about that. So part of the disaster of Nnamdi was that Juan Castillo was the defensive coordinator.
Yes.
And that and they had this idea. Juan had this idea when they signed.
A good one.
Maybe I might have told you this story before. I often repeat myself, as old people do. But that training camp, Juan kept talking about using Nnamdi all over the field as a Rod Woodson type player.
And he never did that before.
Well, there's not that. That's true, but he meant Charles Woodson. So right away, you had a problem there. Yeah, Nnamdi had never done anything like that. He had played. Remember when Nnamdi was with the Raiders? This is a long time ago. That was the final days of Al Davis, and they ran a real simple defense where Nnamdi just took the other team's best receiver and ran down the field with him. And the Raiders were awful. So, I mean, Nnamdi was good, but part of it was teams could just throw elsewhere. I mean, This guy's pretty good. He's over here. Let's throw over there. You know, it wasn't – they could still win and score a lot of points against the Raiders without having to throw at Nnamdi. So Nnamdi gained this reputation as being like, oh, my God, nobody ever wants to throw at him. When, in fact, if he'd have been on a good team, I think probably teams would have thrown at him a lot more.
Yeah.
But he was the best player on a horrible team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just never. He was never going to be that kind of guy. He was on the downside by the time he got here. The defense they were running didn't make any sense. It was chaos. Yeah, it was. There were a lot of problems. His personality was part of it.
Loner, right? He was a big
fascinating.
He had sandwiches in like his car or something.
But for all that, it wasn't like he was a jerk or anything. He was like a really nice guy to talk to. He was smart, you know, but he just didn't quite get it. He had played in a totally dysfunctional atmosphere in Oakland or wherever the hell they were at that time. And he just had no idea. You know, they had all these great ideas, that whole dream team thing. They had all these great ideas about these guys that were all coming in. It was like the Tower of Babel or something. All these guys from different organizations coming in with different ideas and different, you know, backgrounds. And it was chaos. It was just total chaos.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. It's funny because Eric Archer just says, I'm assuming, he says, wife and I got engagement photos at the link in 2012. Guess whose jersey we are both wearing? I'm going to assume, Eric, that the person in question
24.
Tim. I am so sorry about that. But we've got like the chat's blowing up. We got a lot, especially Habib 215 is going off with a lot of good names. He's named Nnamdi, Bryce Huff, Javon Curse. So like
Javon Curse was good. He just got
he was good.
Hurt.
He got hurt and was never like what he was with the Titans. But he I guess the hype that you get from that kind of acquisition, he didn't live up to it. But yeah, he's naming.
Good point. He didn't. Yeah,
he didn't. Yeah.
Some of these guys in the chat, though, we're gonna run through them. We
we'll run through them. So,
comments.
I'm going to say
some of these guys don't have the stature for me to put on.
But
it's like what you think, like what your opinion, like certain guys you can just look at and there's just something about them that you just like disgust you to your very soul. And then certain guys, you're just like, all right, cool. He didn't live up to shit. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But like, I don't have Carson even on this radar because did the franchise really suffer like without Carson Wentz?
If you don't pull off Jalen Hurts, you're a bottom 3 team in the NFL if it doesn't work out.
And how he had to trade Carson Wentz, I thought that might have been the first step toward Howie losing his job.
Yeah, it was a dark time. Yep.
Yeah. That is still the most remarkable turnaround I've ever seen in my life was Howie, because Howie felt, I mean, I talked off the record to Howie during that time and it was grim. I mean, they weren't like, oh, we're going to be great. Everything's going to be wonderful. You know, it was, oh crap. You know, this is not good. And,
you just gave your franchise quarterback $100 million and you sent him out of town.
Yeah, because he didn't want to play here anymore.
Nope.
You know, I mean, when they hired Nick Sirianni, it was with the idea that maybe he
was going to fix Carson.
Yeah, just stick around. So that's a big one right there. It really is. What are some of the others? What are some of the ones that?
I've had my answer to the poll was going to be agree, but I think Brink swayed me too. So I'm like, I'll go with T.O. But like, there's like, it's a hard poll question because like you guys have been saying and the chat's been saying, there's so many names. So like, I have
Alonso.
Tico Alonso is another one. is definitely another one. The guy that I need to pay my reparations for, always, and I will never live it down, is obviously Jalen Reagor, because everyone who's been following A2D Radio has seen my reaction when we drafted him, and I was all excited, and I swore he was going to be good, and I was wrong.
Same.
And so I have to eat crow that for the rest of my life, and it's immortalized on the internet, like my dumb reaction to it. So I had to live with that, and he was just so bad.
What did you see in him, Chucks?
So I thought, no, from college, I thought he was just another like super fast, speedy wide receiver target that could be like a lesser version of Tyreek Hill. And the issue, the problem I had during that time was that I got so entranced with the Eagles needing speed. Like I was like, we are so slow. We need speed.
Yep.
We need speed. We need speed.
We're
and
old.
Tyreek Hill was like coming on the scene. He was like the up and coming like brilliant weapon. And I got so entranced with needing speed that I had tunnel vision, and I saw, okay, Jalen Reagor is probably one of the most dynamic prospects in this class. That's who I think we needed. I think what I will push back on is people think that I hated Justin Jefferson. I never hated Justin Jefferson. I just felt that like the Eagles needed speed, but that was my fault. I fell for need over take the better overall player, and that's what bit me in the butt. But I never.
Well, I'll say this: I had a lot. I covered that draft, and I was involved in a lot of stuff. And I know everybody here wanted Justin Jefferson. I was aware of that. But there were a lot of draft people that really saw, like there were 2 or 3 receivers that were all Reagor was kind of in the same group as Jefferson going into the draft. Certainly he didn't turn out to be, but
people thought Jefferson was a glorified slot receiver. That's what everyone
like Jefferson was rated way up here and Reagor was weighted way down. No, it was not like that at all.
All I heard from the Jefferson stuff was, he can't play on the outside. You can't take him. He's just going to be a slot guy. And I saw more than that. Like I really like Justin Jefferson coming into the draft. Him and Reagor were my 2 guys. But all I was told was, his stats were awful. He can't play on the outside. I was just like, you're aware that like the 1 year he played with Joe Burrow, like Burrow was not what he was the next year. Like the quarterback played a big part of that.
Right.
And I think with Jefferson, like it's so funny revisionist history for some people too. People act like they had Jefferson as wide receiver 1 in that club.
He was like wide receiver like
they did
3 or 4.
Jerry Jeudy was widely considered as the top ranked wide receiver, if not him, CeeDee Lamb. Justin Jefferson by many people was like the 3rd guy, but people act like they knew it this whole time. But look, I never hated Justin Jefferson.
You can roll a tape on my takes on Justin Jefferson. I didn't understand why. I understood CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb looked pretty good, and I didn't understand Jerry Jeudy. That was the glorified slot receiver in that draft. I love Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
loved him.
I hear you.
SEC.
You know, one qualm I had with Reagor, and it doesn't really make any sense, and it's not fair, but I covered his dad, who finished his career with the Eagles.
Monte, yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan. It just seemed like a guy that was kind of coasting.
Yep.
And always had an excuse, and when I drafted Jalen, I thought, well, first of all, I called up Monte because that's a good story, right? But I didn't want to. I mean, you can't. That's ridiculous to think of somebody, think to downgrade someone because of their dad. But
exactly.
After you saw Jalen for a few years,
you could see it. You could understand. Right? You could kind of understand.
Yeah, once they started interviewing his coach on WIP like the next day, and he was not giving a glowing recommendation letter, you're just like, oh, okay. Like I think I did like a whole like breakdown because they brought in Rick Scangarello that year, and I think I did like a whole offseason breakdown of like what the QBs looked like in his offense. They're very RPO heavy. They like speed. They like throwing downhill. They like play action. I'm like, oh my God. Jalen fits all of that. Wentz is going to be perfect in this Gangrel offense. These two things just work out. That first game, and I just kept telling people all offseason, I said, he's going to be perfect. Like, he fits exactly what you're looking for in the offense. And when he throws that 40-yard bomb to Jalen Reagor, I'm just like, I was telling people, I said, see, this is what we were missing.
Yeah,
And then,
I know. That was it. That was like it. That was the only thing. So, yeah, that's one of the huge disappointments. So that's all I'll name.
I mean, it's also disappointing. Last thing on the radio, it's also disappointing because like Justin Jefferson slipped through your hands, top of the second round. Michael Pittman Jr. slipped through your hands.
Like, you can argue Pittman, but like
yeah,
the whole receiver thing there for several years.
Yep.
I mean, we all know the problems with Carson Wentz, but Jesus Christ, you gave him J.J. Arcega-Whiteside 1 year and Jalen Reagor the next year.
Yep.
And before that, Nelly, you know, I mean,
it's funny. He was the best. He turned out
problems there. You know, it was just not.
It was bad. It was really bad. So, other guys. So I don't PY if you want to go. I just went PY if you want to name someone else you want to dive into as one of the most disappointing or worst Eagles that you can think of.
Like that we were wrong about, or like someone.
No, just doesn't have to. You can be right or wrong. The worst Eagles that you can think of.
He's not the worst, but like he's just somebody that like I just put my heart and soul into believing in, and I just got destroyed. Sidney Jones. Like I was so excited. The athleticism, the lockdown ability. I'm just like, what? This is. You're getting this guy in the second round. This is a steal. Like this is going to be your starting corner for years to come. And
that soured me on the Pac-10 forever.
Yes.
You know, frankly, I mean they'd had so many guys like that. You know, Andre Dillard. You know, same deal. Same church. You know, Sidney Jones. I was all over that. I thought there was a good chance they would draft him. I had some inside information there. And they did, and I thought this is smart. This is smart, you know. And it just
never. What's funny is when he went to Seattle after here, he actually wasn't.
He was solid.
He was solid.
Very briefly. Very briefly.
He was solid, but he never was what he was supposed to be.
Right. And there was probably a problem there with the thing that I've talked about a lot on here. Some guys really, really, really want to be great. And some guys, this is a way to make some money. And I kind of think Sid fit into the second category. I don't think he was really that gung-ho about spending his life as a pro football player.
Gotcha. Okay, good answer. I did not know that. Les, anyone, you can go next. Who's anyone you want to highlight? I know you named off people before.
Well, Stacy was huge because John Runyon had just retired, and they had made the decision to, if you remember the setting, that was the weekend that Brian Dawkins signed with Denver, and they're introducing Stacey Andrews.
This is Stacey's day.
Won't talk about the fact that Brian Dawkins has just walked out the door because it's Stacey's day. And they had his brother, Sean who at that time we thought was going to be an all-pro guard forever.
Yep. Sean Andrews.
And it just looked like a great thing, you know, bringing the guy's brother to play right tackle. He was really good in Cincinnati, and here we go. And for whatever reason, some of it was health, but he just wasn't very good here. He just didn't do it. They tried a couple things before they finally drafted Lane Johnson. You know, Demetrius Bell was another guy they tried there. They really struggled at right tackle for 3 or 4 years. The only times that they've really struggled at tackle, other than when people are hurt, you know, in the whole time I've covered the team, left tackle went from Trey Thomas to Jason Peters to Mailata, you know, but right tackle, they had 3 or 4 adventurous years there before they drafted Lane.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I remember when Stacey came in, I was like, he's been a solid player. Like you said, he was a solid player for the Bengals, and Sean's here, and it's gonna be
Should've been
great.
your first mistake.
And it was bad.
Yeah.
You thought
really
it was.
bad.
You thought it was gonna be like an episode, like a game of backyard football, where it's like you got, for whatever reason in the game, like when the siblings play together, they're immediately better, and you're like, oh my god, both these guys together, they're gonna be a great duo.
Yeah, and it was never that. So that's a good one. That's a good one. Brinks, do you have one that you want to shout out?
Now I don't know if people forgot, or I don't know if he was drafted to play left tackle or right tackle, but in the dark period of era, they drafted Winston Justice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course I remember. 7 sacks.
39th overall.
Second round.
Oh,
That's a high
He had
pick.
that one
39th
horrible
overall.
game.
That's a high pick. And he went out there against OCU Manura one Sunday
thank
night.
God. Yeah. Oh,
He let up
Everybody
7
remembers that, but
in one
otherwise,
game.
he was a decent player. He wasn't as good. He shouldn't have been drafted in the second round,
Yeah.
but he was a reasonable. I don't think the expectations for him were through the roof, but another Pac-10 player.
It's so
had
because
so
that
many
7
bad-
sacks in one game in
he'll
prime
always
time
be
against
associated with
the
it. He'll always
Stinking
be
Giants.
Wouldn't
I
do
think
it, but-
Javon Evans was worse.
So he was overmatched in that game, and we just all stood there and watched
Yeah. No
the
help.
Giant Stadium. They never gave him any help
Yeah.
or pulled him for a series and put in somebody. They just let it happen
Just let it
over
happen.
and over and over again. It was
Yeah.
like the Todd Pinkston thing in the NFC Championship game where they just stood it. Yeah, well, this keeps happening. Huh? How about that?
Yep.
You know,
It's
It
like
was
that one guy
insane.
from the Falcons against the Cowboys a few years ago, where he had like 6 sacks in like the same game. It was like ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's crazy. That's a good one. We almost forgot it. I have PTSD from that game. That was a dark time. That was a dark time.
well, we're talking about the worst moments. That might be.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to
That's a bad moment.
That's a bad moment. So I'll name. There's so many I want to get to, but I do have 2 more I want to highlight. The first one is not okay, or the first of my last 2. It's not someone that's a disappointment. Because the expectations weren't high, but I have to mention him as one of the Eagles acquisitions that I probably hate, even though he was only here for 2-3 weeks from what I remember, is Orlando Scandrick.
Yes.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Talk about an absolute rat of a player.
I'm gonna let you go
Because
first, because then I want to
This
go.
is what he did when he was here, and then when he left, and then on the media tour he went on to blast the Eagles, to blast Malcolm Jenkins. I don't think I don't remember a former and
He's the rattiest rat ever.
I wanted to smack through the television screen more than him.
So my favorite thing about it is, so he gets blown up. I forget who we were playing. Like he's awful all game long. He goes on Undisputed and he's
Cowboys.
like, oh, what did you say?
It was against the Cowboys.
Of course he was against the Cowboys.
Against the Cowboys.
You know, he's just atrocious. He goes on Undisputed. Howie Roseman's this, Malcolm Jenkins is that, team culture, Carson Wentz, and Skip's loved it. Meanwhile, Shannon's just like, why are you here? And he just doesn't understand it. He's like, why are you here? He's like, what are you talking about? If you're so good and you're this great player, why are you cut? And why are you doing this show? Because you were cheeks.
Yeah. He was my favorite part of the whole media tour he went on. Media tour, I say like he was on just First Take, but he was blasting Malcolm Jenkins as if like saying Malcolm was a horrible leader, when on mic'd up there's literally quotes of him complimenting Malcolm Jenkins for being a great leader. And I'm just like, you are such a two-faced rat. Like I don't get like that often where I just want to smack a player.
Yep.
But oh my God, Scandrick was one that just got.
Yeah, he just had the red ass about getting cut. Once he got cut, he was going to flame everybody because he was, he felt that was just the worst thing, that they shouldn't have done that. But he had that one good play. Remember that horrendous quarterback the Jets, the worst quarterback I've ever seen. The Jets came in here with, and Scandrick just ran up to him, took the ball away
Yes, yeah,
and
I
ran
remember
for a
that. I
touchdown.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yep. Yeah, the one good play. That's it. So
It was like something from a junior high school game, you know.
Yeah. God, I couldn't do this without mentioning him because he made my
Such a
blood boil.
frickin'
Made my blood boil.
rat.
Anyone else have anyone they want to mention before I mention my last one?
No, I only have two
You only have two
straight
more?
up
Okay.
players. I guess
Yeah.
3 straight up players on my
Yeah.
radar.
So the last one I had, again, there's so many. I mean, like if I'm gonna run down the list, you guys remember Alex Henry, the kicker?
Yes. Oh my God.
Right? There's them. There's Nate Allen, who I couldn't stand.
Yes.
There's Andrew Sendejo.
Oh my God. Oh, I hated
Daquan-
Sendejo so much.
Daquan Jarrett, as someone already mentioned.
Michael
Nate Allen. How is Nate Allen? Why was Nate Allen a guy?
I thought Nate Allen was so bad. Like
Really?
I thought so.
Carroll.
Maybe I was just being delusional.
Well, they
But
drafted him in the second round with one of the
Second round.
picks they got from McNabb,
yeah,
and he wasn't that good.
Was
I mean,
not
he
good.
was an okay player. He was an NFL player. You know, he
Michael
wasn't.
maybe the plays he gave up left a bad taste in my mouth. But
Yep.
I
Yeah.
always just remembered being so angry watching him play.
Yep.
So maybe it was just a fan in me. Maybe I'm being
The
unreasonable.
secondary at that point was just so bad.
The secondary as a whole during
Because
that
you
time.
had
It really
Nate
was. It was
Allen,
horrible.
you
Yeah.
had Kerry Williams, you had Nolan Carroll. Like,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really bad. It was really bad. So I hear that. Another one, Nate Gary, is a guy who annoyed me. Like,
hey, you show
White
Whitesnake some
He
respect.
annoyed everybody, I think.
oh
Yeah.
my
He had a cool nickname. He had a cool helmet.
White Snake.
Couldn't tackle for shit.
That was the guy Schwartz. I have a decent amount of respect for Jim Schwartz, but every now and then, even a good coordinator gets infatuated with a
Yes.
player who really isn't very good.
Yeah.
For Jim Johnson, it was Mark Semino.
Oh my
Jim
god.
Johnson thought Mark Semino was a great player.
Yeah.
For Schwartz, it was Nate Gary. The only reason Nate Gary ever played more than like 3 games in his career was that Jim Schwartz was his coordinator, and Jim Schwartz believed in. Jimmy Kempski brought up. He was talking about Nate in another context today in Philly Voice, and he brought up a really good point about Nate, which was that he was a converted safety, from safety to linebacker, who couldn't cover anybody.
Yeah.
That was the worst part of his game.
Yep.
He actually wasn't that bad, although he was too small against the run. He just couldn't cover anybody.
He couldn't cover.
How are you a converted safety who can't cover anybody?
And he's not a safety anymore. That's why. Yeah. So there's that. I mean, an older one from back in the day. I'm sure you remember last. Jerome McDougal.
Yes.
Was another big bust.
The only guy from the U during that time period that
wasn't.
You know, I saw him. I had just started covering. That was my second year covering the team. I was still kind of feeling my way around the NFL. But I think I've said this before. First time I saw him in the locker room, I'm looking at this guy. He's kind of chubby. He's not real tall. He's not real built. And I'm thinking, really? And everybody says, "Oh, he got shot." He was on his way out of the league before he got shot. I mean, decent guy. I hope he's doing well wherever he is today. But he was not a good player ever. And that was a real problem for them because he was middle of the first round. I think they traded up to draft him.
I think you might be right from what I'm trying to remember. But I think you might be right.
That was that horrible draft in 2003 where almost nobody that they drafted was any good.
Yeah.
They drafted was that LJ Smith. But,
second round, right? Yeah.
But they passed over Jason Witten to draft LJ
Smith. Yeah.
Well, technically, they do it.
People have argued LJ Smith too as a big disappointment. So,
he was a huge disappointment because he was really supposed to be a superstar. He was supposed to be, a really great tight end.
So two random ones, just because I think of them. Just because anytime you think of like bad corners who just give up a ridiculous amount of yardage, Michael Joquette.
Michael.
From a
Oh
few years-
my God! I almost forgot about.
Yeah,
that.
it's like seven
Oh my
targets for like 160 yards,
But
like
he was
4
nobody,
touchdowns.
though. I mean, he was a
Yeah, he
guy
was
they took
nobody.
off the scrap heap, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't.
That's why I had to think
anybody
about him
that
for a
was any
second.
good.
Jamon Evans, the offensive lineman we had a few
Oh,
years
that
ago,
weird-
who's
yeah, that
famous
was
for
the
like
weirdest thing,
tackling
yeah.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the veteran offensive lineman, and he just, I don't know what the hell was going on with that guy, but he was mentally not there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's that. So the last two I'll mention, Byron Maxwell
Yes.
Yeah.
and Byron Maxwell and then DeMarco Murray. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Marco. All right, it's not your
Yeah.
fault, buddy. You were still good. We just
Yeah.
didn't know how to use you.
we didn't know how to use them, and it just,
It's just so funny. You have one skill. One skill.
and Chip doesn't
Yes.
want to, yeah.
No, we should make him do this.
Yeah. I don't think like you said, I don't think it's all his fault. I don't think like the issue toward the end of the year where he slid. I think he slid. Was it he slid or went out of bounds early?
Yeah, he slid out of bounds.
Slid out of
like a
bounds, right?
quarterback.
Yeah. So that was a bad look, but he was misused all year, and like, it wasn't all his fault. Like,
No.
but it was still a disappointing signing. And
Oh,
it just-
without question. You just did it to dick over the Cowboys, and then he goes to Tennessee and he looks great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So well, he was worn out. So
Whenever you sign a guy just to tweak a
Get run
rival,
over.
that often doesn't work.
It doesn't work out well. It doesn't
Yeah.
work out well. Yeah. Brinks, I know
Ryan
you had a
Kerrigan.
coach. I know you had a coach you wanted to mention before we get to worst moments. So who was the coach?
Chip.
Oh,
Chip was terrible. He was awful. He just zero people skills at all. I heard on the grapevine that the reason he got axed when he did was because he tried to mess with Jeffrey Lurie's company Christmas party.
Oh yeah, that's well known.
Confirm
Yeah,
or
well,
deny that.
he didn't like when it was scheduled for. He felt that was a bad
trying to go
time. They
over
were
the
trying to get
owner's
ready
head.
for a game, and he didn't need this sort of distraction. And
Yeah,
they shouldn't be
like-
having this thing anyway. You
They were
know,
losing.
that wasn't the reason he got fired, but it certainly
No,
didn't.
That was from what I've gathered, that was the final straw. I mean,
Well, there were two. That was a little bit of it, but there was also there was a press conference a day after a loss, 2 days before he was fired, or maybe the day before he was fired. And Howard Eskin said, "Hey, this team, is not going to make the playoffs. You're the general manager. You made all these personnel moves. So, what do you have to say about it?" And Chip seized on the fact that he did not have the title of general manager, even though he had been given control over Howie Roseman. He was not the general manager. So Chip, son of a lawyer, just totally ignores the substance of the question and starts into this, "Well, I'm not the general manager. You have to ask, Howie Roseman about that. I'm not the general manager. You have to ask the general manager question." And apparently that pissed Lurie off
I mean, look at
greatly.
he traded. I mean,
because it was a
McCoy is-
technicality. It was a
Okay.
ridiculous technicality.
Yeah.
Let's not be silly here, Chip. You were
Yeah.
the guy that acquired these players. That's what Howard meant, even though he said the wrong thing, and but Chip loves stuff like that. Anytime he could catch you in a little,
Yeah.
if you said Thursday's game and it was Saturday or something, he would, oh, well, he loves stuff like that.
Deshaun released. I think they let Macklin go for $1 million to the Chiefs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just
Well, they had a legal
his
contact.
infatuation with Riley Cooper, who just absolutely stunk out loud.
Mhm.
Anytime anyone ever asked him about Riley Cooper, he said he was a really good blocker. Like, that's not what you pay receivers to do at this level. Like, you don't have 85 5-stars coming in every offseason, Chip. Like, you're going to have to get along with people who, you might not agree with to, try and win football games. McCoy for Kiko Alonso. I forget if it was an Achilles or an ACL or whatever Kiko Alonso. How you trade the best running back in the league for Kiko Alonso. Deshaun Jackson, you just made up this fake story that he was just like gang affiliated, like thug criminal. And he was a little rough around the edges, but there was very, very little evidence that
Yeah, he would.
He
have
was
been
involved
fine.
in that,
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
got rid of him because he didn't
Right.
like him. He brought in Sam Bradford, who was just a total stiff. Because
I wouldn't say total stiff.
He's okay.
Sam
It wasn't
Bradford
great.
stinks.
No,
Just absolutely stinks. Sam Bradford was
Well,
never,
I think by
ever
the
in
time
a
he
million
got
years
here,
going to win
he
a
was.
championship.
I think the injuries had affected his psyche and his physical ability. I think at one point Sam Bradford.
Well, how
could
many
have been
times
a
did he
really,
tear his
really,
ACL
really good
before the
quarterback.
Eagles got a hold of him?
Yeah,
Twice.
ultra talented. He was. You can ask like a lot of people like during that time. Like I constantly hear players and coaches like who like were playing or coaching around when Sam Bradford was in his prime. Like Sam Bradford was a gifted thrower of the football, and that's why
He just had a horrendous injury history. I mean,
Injury
as bad
history
as
was
any
horrendous.
That's
I've
why they
ever
took a.
seen.
That's why they took a
Remember-
risk on him, because if you could get him right and you could get him
Yeah.
standing and not be hurt,
he was
like
a
there was an
great
immense
player.
talent there. The arm
Remember-
talent. He was a smart
But by
player.
the time he
It just
got to
didn't
the
work out.
Eagles, he didn't want to get hit. He wanted to dump everything off.
Yeah.
You know, and that
That's
happens.
what Chip
to quarterbacks.
wanted.
That
Chip
happens.
wanted to hurry up and go 3 and out every possession and just hang his defense out the
Hey,
drive,
that happened.
like he's
you
playing
know,
in the Pac-10.
You
there
wanted
were
a
some
more
games where Brett
trustworthy
Favre
guy with the
did that.
football.
You know, I mean, a lot of guys when they get older, they don't like that. You know, getting creamed while they're trying to get rid of the ball.
Yeah, I remember. Like, if you guys remember when Bradford was with the Vikings, he had that one Monday night game where he went absolutely off. Like he went off.
Yeah, they
And
went
then
like
the
6-0 to start the season.
And then the next week, I think he tore his ACL again, and that was pretty much
Yeah.
it for Bradford.
Yeah,
But like
it's a shame.
the
It's a
talent
shame.
was there, just like you said, Les, the injuries, and then just he was soft. He definitely was soft.
Yeah, and that'll soften you up. 3 or 4 really bad injuries.
It wasn't even like he was doing anything to get hurt. There was one play where he's walking out of bounds and he tears his ACL. Or I think he tore it once, just like standing in the pocket and moved too quickly. Like those are the type of things to where like that's just messing with your head. Like anything you do, you're petrified that you're going to get hurt.
Good point.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that he had huge sleeves.
Yep.
So like his aesthetic was
The sleevey wonder.
That became a big deal, didn't it?
Became a huge deal, even though like Peyton Manning always had huge sleeves. Like Sam Bradford's just looking through another level. So I hear you on that. All right, I want to get to this part, Les, before you go, because I definitely want to get your insight, your takes too on some of these. But the worst, and you can frame them any way you want. The worst, most upsetting, most traumatizing, most heartbreaking, whatever Eagles moments of the past quarter century. So Les, let's go with you. You name your first one. What's the first one that comes to mind when you're thinking of that?
Well, this is very subjective, obviously, but
Yeah.
to me, it will always be that Tampa Bay loss in the NFC Championship game. I've talked about that before. That team could have and should have won the Super Bowl more than the 2004 team, I think, because the Raiders were the team that was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that was like Jerry Rice and a lot of other 500-year-old guys. It was the last gasp of the Raider dynasty. And the Eagles had beaten Tampa Bay in October fairly handily, and they just screwed that game up totally. And it was the last Eagles game in the vet. The Phillies played there another year, but last Eagles game in the vet. And no one expected them to lose that game. They hadn't created this helped create the every year we lose the NFC Championship game a feeling. But going into that game, nobody thought the Eagles would lose it. They were favored. McNabb was back. He had gotten through the opening playoff win over Atlanta pretty well. He had broken his fibula earlier, but he was back.
Yeah.
Everybody thought, okay, let's go, let's win. And I don't think their defense was ever, again, as good as it was lacking a middle linebacker, as we saw during the game when Joe Jurevicius caught that pass across the middle. But other than that, that was probably the best defense of the Andy Reid era. And even the Super Bowl 39 team, the defense wasn't as good as that defense.
Yeah.
So that will always be number one for me. But, obviously James Bradbury, defensive holding might be number 2. And I'm going to bring up one, and it's not at the top of my list, but it's something I think about. Andy Reid's last game.
Oh,
It was at Giants Stadium. The team had gotten off to a 3-1 start and was 4-11, and was playing one last game against a piddling Giants team, and just didn't show up for Andy Reid's last game. And it was a total humiliation, blowout loss. And I thought that was a poignant moment that will always stick with me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good one. That's a very good one. I would have never thought of. PY, what's one? Give us a moment.
The Thanksgiving game against the Lions.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm sitting at my grandfather's house in Maryland. Tradition. We're all sitting around the family. We watch football. Nothing makes me happier than just drinking eggnog and watching football down in Maryland at my grandfather's house. I quit the game at halftime just because it's so bad. I had never stopped watching a game that early before. And my grandfather's just like, "Oh, you enjoying the game, son?" I said, No, sir. I stopped watching. And he's like, "Really?" I said, Yes.
Well, that was the game where I remember Tim McManus from ESPN and I spent like half an hour after we did our interviews trying to find Jeffrey Lurie underneath Ford Field and out where the bus was parked and back and forth. We never found him. He made sure that he did not cross our sight line, but we knew that was the day we knew Chip Kelly was in huge trouble. That team did not want to play that day. And Detroit wasn't very good, and that was just a brutal loss. I didn't like having to be in Detroit on Thanksgiving, frankly, in the first place. And this just really, it was searing, and it was one of those, whoops, okay, this is more than just a couple bad games. Something really horrible is going on here.
Yeah. Who was the one that Megatron victimized? Bradley Fletcher?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Brings, give us one. Give us a moment.
I don't even recall that game. Maybe
I
that's
don't
a
know
good
how.
thing.
It was so abysmal.
It was so bad.
2009, 2010. One of the games was in 2009, and then the new year happened, 2010. They had a chance to win the division against the Cowboys in 2009.
Oh, my God.
They got smoked. Then they had to go back down to Big D on Wild Card Weekend a week later and got smoked.
Yep.
And that's when he did the air guitar, and everyone was kind of like, "Okay, Donovan, like your corny shit is like done. You're never gonna win for us. Go down to Washington.
Yeah.
We're gonna go at it with Kolb and Vic, and we all
like
know
an overweight, out of style rock
touchdown
star
pass in the wild card game. Donovan Knapp didn't, but Michael Vick did. He was on that roster, but that man,
he was
getting our ass kicked by the cockroach Cowboys 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
in ginormous spots.
Rare Dallas playoff victory in the 21st.
I did not like that.
Yes, that was one of the rare Dallas playoff victories, and
one of their 4 playoff wins since '96.
That was Romo, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Romo. Yep.
And they
did not match up. You could see in that final. They had a pretty good year that year, but you could just see in that was a bad matchup. In that regular season finale, you could just see. I remember thinking, what can they possibly do to turn this around? And I was thinking, I don't really think there's anything they can do to turn
that was
this
when Miles was like
Felix Jones was just running everywhere. It was just
it was bad. That was painful. That 100%. I remember that being very, very painful to watch. There's a whole list. There's 2 though that are probably the most painful for me. One is out of left field because it's a very personal moment for me, and then the other one is kind of like in general. But the first one is like the general moment that's I'm sure a lot of us heartbroken over was the loss in Super Bowl 39 to the Patriots. I still have refused to rewatch any of that game. Like I don't think I'll ever bring myself to. Like that game. I remember sitting after that game was over. I was just sitting at home. We had a Super Bowl party, and I was just sitting there in the chair, just silent for so long.
Yep.
And looking back on it now, if there was one thing I could change from Eagles history, it would be that loss, because it pains me that core of Eagles never got a ring.
Yeah,
Brian
Dawkins never got a ring.
Brian
Trotter never got a
Dawkins,
ring.
Jim
McNabb,
Johnson,
obviously.
yeah.
Brian
Like-
Dawkins technically got a ring.
Westbrook.
Technically,
But yeah, like that core of Eagles that I love so much, they never got a ring, and that was the closest they ever gotten. And it was just it hurts a lot to know that. It's so painful. So
I had the 22 Super Bowl on my list. I did not have the Super Bowl 39.
I think if we don't win last year, I think the 22 Super Bowl would be something that would I would never be able to live down. Like
That's
I would.
what-
I haven't
Right. Yeah.
that's a fair point.
I haven't touched a highlight from Super Bowl, whatever it was.
So I
in
was trying to
2020.
break down like
Nothing.
film and stuff, just to kind of compare what last season was to this season prior to this season starting. And I'm just like, I can't. I can't. I'm like, I can watch all the playoff games. I can do all that crap. I can't watch the Super Bowl where we lose. Like, it's just because I'm just going to throw stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Matt. He says 22 was more favorable. We had that game, but I don't know if you remember, we had 39 too. Like we were winning by a touchdown.
Well,
Like,
what should have happened in 39 was the Eagles should have run away with it in the first half.
yes, yeah,
Now, the second half was all New England, really.
because of the adjustments. Yeah,
But the Eagles had so many chances to just put a hurting on that, like they did against the Chiefs in this Super Bowl. You know,
Yeah.
they could have been so far ahead that the second half wouldn't matter. You know, and I've never, that whole drive that took too long. I never thought that was the focal point of the game. The fact that they couldn't stop New England from scoring in the second half was
Corey
the
Dillon.
focal point for me.
yeah.
But I understand everybody else's point there too.
It sucks. I'll name my last one before everyone else names one more if you guys want to go. The other one that's like really personal to me was the 2006-2007 divisional loss to the Saints. That's the season where McNabb was hurt and we had Jeff Garcia come in. I always link
Scott Young.
I always have a personal connection to that season because I had a lot of personal stuff going on that season. And then when the Eagles started turning it around was when things started to go better for me. So I always had a personal attachment to that. And you guys know, B West being my favorite player, him being like the focal point, the leader of that team and took over when McNabb went was like my opus grandi. Like it was like, this is my guy. I told you he was the superstar and leader that we all were waiting for. And like seeing him lead the team and that playoff win against the Giants in the wild card round, electric game, and just so many personal memories for me. And then I thought we absolutely should have beat the Saints. Like I was like, yo, if we beat the Saints, we have a chance to reach a Super Bowl. And just it's so close. We couldn't stop the run. We couldn't stop Deuce McAllister.
Sean Andrews had to leave at halftime with a neck injury, and Scott Young came in for him. And Scott Young false started at the goal line.
Yep.
And they didn't score the touchdown on that series sequence. And I don't know if they kicked a field goal or what happened. I don't know if they gave the ball away. I don't remember now, but that was a huge pivotal moment. If they scored a touchdown there, I think they would have won the game.
Yeah. Yep. Huge penalty. That was huge. I mean, you guys remember too, we set the tone remember that game was the Sheldon Brown hit on Reggie Bush.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
bring that up all the time.
Like we set
That
the
would be
tone
so illegal now.
Oh, maybe so. Yeah, defensive receiver.
And for
Wasn't that
good
at home?
reason, frankly.
Hold on. Wasn't
but,
that at
yeah.
home?
No,
Hmm?
that was in New Orleans. That was in,
I know we played the Saints a couple times. We lost.
That was in
to
the dome.
Saints.
It was
Yeah.
one of those first games after Katrina type things. One of the first, maybe their first year back in the dome after being gone for a year because
you
of
could be
Katrina.
right, Les, because I think that was like a very emotionally charged season for them too. Like it was,
Yeah.
because it was after Katrina. So yeah, but that loss always stings. So those are the two that bring them to me. PY, Les, if you guys have anything else you want to bring up before close out.
They're sounding off in the comments about 2008. That's
That loss, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
I
the
didn't
year.
think, I was surprised that team, that team wasn't, what were they? It took a miracle to get them in. You remember the miracle that had
Yeah,
to take place?
the
for
last
them?
game.
Yeah.
The last game.
And, and then they were playing Arizona, which wasn't that good. But they were in Arizona, which always seems to be a problem for the Eagles. And, they couldn't hold. McNabb gave them the lead, and they couldn't hold it. They
put it in,
Yeah, that was bad. The whole Rod Hood tripping Kevin Curtis thing. Yeah, that was tough. It really was.
Very, very tough. Yep. Yeah, and it was such a that playoff run was had its own set of magic to it too, because we played the wild card round. We played the Vikings, and remember, B West had that clutch screen pass touchdown.
That was in Minnesota, wasn't it?
In Minnesota,
Yeah.
And then the week after, we played the Giants, the defending Super Bowl champion Giants in New York, and we beat them. So we were riding high. We were like, yo, we can do this. And then to be let down like that was, that was hard to swallow. So yeah, that 2008, 2009 NFC Championship game is a popular one that people like. I know we bring up the 2010, 2011 wild card loss of the Packers. We brought that up before. So yeah. And then I guess the last one I'll do honorable mention. Do you guys remember, again, bringing back the 2006 season? Do you guys remember the loss in Tampa Bay when Matt Bryant kicked a 62-yard
field goal? Yes.
Les. Oh my God. I wanted to scream because you remember before that you remember what happened? Brian Westbrook made a miraculous touchdown play where he took it, I forget how many yards, but he took a dump-off pass, made the whole defense miss, and went in for what should have been the game-winning touchdown. That was oh my God. And then 62 yards? Are you kidding me?
He wasn't even a good kicker.
Right. Yeah.
He wasn't even a good kicker.
And I remember watching that and thinking from the second it left his foot that, Jesus Christ, that's good. It wasn't like it just sort of fluttered over the bar. Just go,
yeah.
Vinatieri comes in and does that, or first round pick Sebastian Janikowski comes in and boot Justin Tucker. All right, you got me there. Cool. Matt Bryant, no, they never win in Tampa, and they got to go down there.
Yeah.
They can go down there in week 3 this year again.
Yeah.
Can we get some home games against Tampa?
No,
we did.
We get no home games down there, and it's never okay, December 5th, we're going down to Tampa. We'll get out of the cold. We'll go there. We'll get our offense.
It's always early.
No, it's going to be 8 million degrees with 100% humidity and good luck. And by the way, probably half your team is going to be hurt.
Yep.
The weird thing about Tampa, though, even though they have a very good fan base there, everybody in every city sells tickets now. To pay for having season tickets, you sell some of the games, and because there's so many Eagles fans down there, the seats are always a third full of Eagles fans.
Yeah, there's a big Eagles community down in the Tampa area.
Yeah,
it's
very funny.
Eagles community. Yep.
Partly because of Clearwater, but a lot of people retire down there.
Yeah, from this area. Yeah. Last one I'll say before we head out. It's a moment, not necessarily a whole game, but a moment when Wentz got concussed against
Yeah.
this.
I have that written down here. I didn't
Yeah.
mention it, but yeah,
That was I feel like that was the.
would have won that game. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the final.
Where he
ending.
played about snaps.
I think it's whatever we could have salvaged with Carson Wentz, whatever confidence he was rebuilding in himself,
Right.
that was all
Dead.
lost. All lost once he got that concussion.
Just
That
it was
It had been
like
something
crazy.
of a redeeming year. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there was no doubt going into that game that he was the Eagles quarterback going forward. There was no
100%.
thought of replacing him.
Yeah.
But then when he gets hurt yet again, and they draft Jalen Hurts, you know,
Yep.
and
that was it. That was
So
it.
I have a
Who came-
random
Who
one.
came in again?
McCown.
Josh McCown.
Josh McCown,
Oh.
150-year-old Josh
Yeah.
McCown, who tore his hip off the bone. or
Josh, I have a
something.
random one just
You know,
because I
just
think
by
about it all the
routine
time.
play.
Go ahead, PY, before we get
Go
it.
ahead.
When they tie with the Bengals in 2020,
That's just a
because at
laughable
that
moment.
point you're still convincing yourself, okay, maybe they don't suck, maybe they're good, maybe Wentz just needs to get going, and then they tie, and you're just like, not only does Wentz suck, Doug Peterson has no idea that you can win.
That tie.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, it's funny you
When
mentioned
he
that
punted,
one.
Ties and
Doug
Bengals, I'm
punted.
thinking
Other
Donovan.
tie.
Yeah.
I think brings us thinking about the other tie that
when they tied against, and McNabb was like, I didn't even know the game
didn't
could
even
end
know
at a
it was a
tie. I thought it
tie.
was like a funny, cute
Not
thing.
even-
Like, dude, like we're paying you like hundreds of millions of dollars. Could you at least like know the rules? And then he was just the butt of the joke. The whole rest of Terry Bradshaw
Yeah.
came out on Fox with a
Yeah.
tie with like Donovan.
That's the
pitch
tie
on it.
I remember. Yep.
But,
Yeah.
but
But you're right. The 2020 was bad. That was the one where
he punted.
Ertz dogged it or something. The only time in his career he got in trouble for something. What did Ertz do?
Oh, you're
What,
right.
no yak Zach?
Right.
Where he
yeah.
would just catch the ball and fall down. Did he pull one of those?
I don't
forget
think
what
so.
he
It was something where he just didn't try to block a guy or something.
did. Yeah, and then he got yeah.
Notorious. Also, Zach Ertz notorious for running a 7-yard route on 3rd and 8 and being.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. I know. I
I've
would.
seen it a million times.
Yeah.
I don't need film.
You also
I
don't
know-
win the
I know
Super
what I
Bowl
saw.
without him.
Yeah.
He was a good player, but I mean,
Great
he frustrated me to all end with how good he
Why?
was and how many of those instances that Les just brought out and the two that I
Arguably,
just
like you're
that
the
happened.
best tight end ever in Eagles history.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it make me mad. All these guys make me mad at one point or another.
We know.
All of them.
You're
Oh my
great.
God, you
You're great. We
consistently
know.
are getting 1,000 yards a
Look,
season.
look,
What are you
Like,
doing?
if you go out there and stink on Sunday, you're gonna hear about it from me on Monday. I don't care if you're Brian Westbrook,
Yeah,
Brian
Zach
Dawkins,
Ertz
or
and the word
some
stink
stiff
are
on the
not
practice squad.
synonymous.
I don't care.
We know.
And after
We know.
after the show Monday, then I've learned to let it go.
That's a lie. Why are you lying live on the recordable
No,
film?
Gentlemen,
What am I
great
going to do
show.
about it? What's Nick Sirianni going to call me up and say, "Well, what do you think I should?" Like, no, there's no. You can't like let it ruin your whole week.
I'll
I
remember
mean,
that.
losses to the
Yeah.
Cowboys and losses. Well, we don't lose to the Giants anymore.
Sure,
ever.
surely that
Whoa.
take will never come back to haunt you.
Well, on that,
But
great
I'm
show,
also
guys.
35 years old now, and
Let
we
me
just
close
went
up.
through the whole 2000s.
let me close up. Let me close
Like-
up. I gotta go to
Like
sleep.
nothing surprises me now.
Let me go. I gotta go to bed. I'm an old man. Thank you guys. This has been a fun show.
It has
Great
been.
show. Yep. A lot of good healing here of just letting the negative noise out there and just being able to move on. But great show again. We were brought to you by Bozzio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads. Make sure you mention HUD Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. Catch all of their other shows that we got. I think we got our full slate back again with the holiday done. So check out all of us. Until next week, we will be back. I don't know what topic we're doing yet. We'll think about it. We'll brainstorm and we'll come up. But we got only a few weeks left until training camp. It'll be here soon enough. Until then, for myself, for Brinks, for PY, and for the great Les Bowen and the rest of us at Eagles Talk at ATD Radio, we will see you next week. Peace out, guys.
Peace out.